Choosing the advanced system significant specialized instrument permits and I asked instead if I could sit on the critical decisions program for new people. Ensuring quality at the back of the room, I looked around and the students all had the unnatural authentic cleanliness, which goes with being new to sales. Their instructor recently promoted from the field was launching integrate because into its favorite topic objection handling. You should have imagined a more difficult scene. It could have been 2 days of any basic sales training program in any large company. The professional salesperson began the instruction welcome objections because they are sign of the customer's interest. In fact, the more objections you get, the easier it will be for you to sell. The class duly impressed wrote this down. Meanwhile, I groaned behind my mandatory digitals. Smile, smile. There was another new generation of salespeople at the receiving end, one of the most misleading myths in selling. Still, as a visitor, it would have been improper for me to comment, so I continued to smile through an hour of objection and reflecting until coffee break. During coffee, I talked with the instructor. Did you believe that you were saying in there? I asked that stuff. The more objections, the easier to sell. Yes, he replied. If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't be teaching it. He hesitated. clearly. The instruction and I had opposite view about objection handling. I would have been easier to drop the subject, but he had been kind enough to let me into his class. So I felt I owed him something in return. You have been a successful sales performer for several years, haven't you? I asked. Yes, he replied with some pride. I have been with the company 5 years and I have made President's Club. For the last three, look back at your own sales experience. I asked him, 5 years ago when you were new, did you receive more or fewer objections from your customer than you are getting now? He thought for a moment. More, I guess, he replied. Then as he remembered back for a moment, more, I guess, he replied. Then, as he remembered back, he added, you know, in the 2 years when I was new, I seemed to get objections all the time. So I asked, in those first 2 years when you were facing all those objections, what did you have? Good sales figure? No, he replied comfortably. In fact, my sales were not good until my third year with the company. Pressing the point, I asked him, then you did a lot better in that third year. Yes, he said, that was the year I first met President's Club. And how about objections? I asked. It sounded as if you had more objections in your unsuccessful year. How does that tie in with what you said in class about the more objections, the more successful the call will be? He considered the point for a while and replied, you are right. When I look back, I faced many more objections. When I was successful, perhaps I am teaching the wrong message. I had to admire him. Most people, given the astonishing human capacity for dismissing unwanted evidence, would have dodged the issue and held to their initial position. But the class was reconvening and I had to finish my tour of the facility, so I didn't have time to talk more with the instructor about objection handling. If we had more time, I would have told him objection handling is much less important skill than most training makes it about to be. Objection, contrary to common belief, are more often created by the seller than the customer. In the average sales team, there are usually one salesperson who receives 10 times as many objections per selling hour as another person in the same team. Skilled people receive fewer objections because they have learned objections presentation, not objection handling. To explain these findings, I will have to back to a discussion of features, advantage, and benefit. You will remember the definition of these three behaviors and their links to success in sales different sides. Behavior. Feature. Feature describes fact, data, product, and characteristic. Impact slightly positive on small sales. On larger sales, neutral or slightly negative. Advantage type A benefit. The definition of advantage is show how product, service, or their feature can be used or can help the customer. On small sales, it has positive impact. On larger sales, it has slightly positive impact. Benefits type B benefit. Show how product or service meet explicit need expressed by the customer. Very positive, very positive. One of my colleagues, Linda Mars, had been carrying out some correlation studies to check whether there were statistically significant links between each of these behaviors and the most probable response they produced for customers. For example, when sellers use a lot of feature in the calls, do customers respond in different way from their response in calls where fewer feature are used? She discovered feature, advantage, benefit, and each product a different behavior response from customer. feature and price concern. Customers are more likely to raise price concern in calls where the seller gives a lot of features. Why is this? It seems that the effect of feature is to increase the customer's sensitivity to price. That's not necessarily a bad. Seller behavior, feature, price concern, advantage, objections, benefits, support and approval. Most probable effect of feature, advantage and benefit on the customers. Things if you happen to be selling low cost products that are relatively rich in feature, consider the psychology of this environment in advertisement. This feature rich product is being sold in a way which works well with cheaper goods. You can imagine the television commercial. We give you multiplication, division, subtraction. And what do you think that's worth? Well, don't answer it because you also get markup and markdown percentage, which is something you do usually find on watches 10 times the price. And we also give you throughout history. Using features like this has helped to sell lower price goods. Why? Because feature increase price sensitivity. By listing all the feature, the customer comes to expect higher price. When the product turn out to be much cheaper than its competition, the increased price sensitivity caused the buyer to feel extra positive about the lower price tag. I choose to a watch example rather than an industrial product because there is something unique about watches. In no other market that I can think of is there such an enormous price difference between competitors. In this next advertisement, the watch is 20 times as expensive as our earlier example. Men's calculator watch, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, markup, markdown percentage, sales price $40.95, plus melody alarm, month, date, week, full 6-digit readout, display hours, minute. Absence of feature with high cost product. Inspiration brought to life. The authentic Lazel Genuine create the new collection of the Ultra Gear model for the men and women from around $200 for authorized stockists. See opposite. Do you think you'd be more likely to buy this watch if there was a list of features down the side of the advertisement to help you, not on your life? With top of the market product, a price concern created by feature will make people less likely to buy. A list of features would probably make you ask yourself questions about whether the expensive watch worth it or not. Too many features, a case study. In relationship between feature and price concern is not just a theoretical point which applies to only advertisers. It has a clear implications for the sales strategy. A major US-based multinational up, once called us in to help them with a problem that had been facing to the Japanese competition in their primary marketplace, particularly at the lower end of their product range. The Japanese product was richly featured and, as you might expect, somewhat less expensive than the US company's own machine. As market share began to erode, the US company looked for alternatives to price cutting. One attractive possibility was to introduce new products with more features which could compete directly with the Japanese machine. Such a machine would still be a little more expensive, but because of its feature would provide much stronger marketplace offering. But who would sell this new product? The company decided to recruit part of the sales force from the competition. After all, nobody knows how much about how to sell these these richly featured machines as sales people who had been successful with their Japanese competitors. It seemed on the face of it plausible energy recruiting experience for themselves while simultaneously weakening of the competition by raiding their best people. They approached competitive salespeople who had been very successful selling the cheaper Japanese machine and succeeded in recruiting some of their competitors' top people. Unfortunately, these new people sales results were deeply disappointing. The competition's superstars performed no better than the existing sales force. While trying to discover what was going wrong, I talked with several of people recruited from competition and found them puzzled and dejected at their sudden fall from success. It's price, they explain. The product's too expensive. We get price objection all the time, and they were right. When we traveled with them on calls, we found that the number of price objections they received from customer was 30% higher than for the rest of the sales force who were selling in the same product. Why? We couldn't write it off as pure coincidence when two sections of sales force selling an identical product received different level of price objection from their customers. The answer lay in their use of features. While the selling for a cheaper competitor, these salespeople have developed the selling style very high in features. These salespeople had developed a selling style very high in features. This was a very successful because as we have seen features increase customer price concern, but because their product was cheaper, the price concern worked to their advantage. Now that they were selling for more expensive competitors, the high level of feature they were giving worked against them. Their features increased price concern and because their product was more expensive, this turned customers toward the cheaper competitor. I presented our findings to the sales director for the revision as he really remarked. Right now they seem to be doing better job of selling for our competition than when our competition employed them. How could we help not how could we help? Not I suggested by teaching them how to handle price objection. That was the just symptom. It could be more effective to treat the cause, help the new people adopt the selling type more appropriate to the top of the market product. So we retain them as a spin, questioning technique so that they could use high benefit style. As a result, their sales increased, price objections dropped, and the price issue were soon forgotten. Treating symptoms or treating causes. Let me introduce a theme that I will come to several times in this chapter. Curing a self problem just like curing a disease rests on the finding of the treating the cause rather than the symptom. When I was 9 years old, I lived in Borino. A friend of my own age warned me that there was a typhoid epidemic in the village. All that either of us knew about typhoid was that it caused a burning fever. But I want to catch it, he assured me. I am eating a lot of ice cream to keep cool. I followed his example and caught typhoid from infected ice cream. One of the few things I remember clearly about my months seriously ill in hospital was my father explaining to me about the difference between symptoms such as high temperature and causes, like the nasty little bacterium Salmonella typhosa, which loved to lure in ice cream. Perhaps this episode made me unduly sensitive to treating symptoms when you should be watching out for causes. But just suppose we had run a program to teach those salespeople clever answers to price objection, would we have achieved anything? I think not. The customer's price concern was just a symptom. The cause was giving too many features. Teaching objection handling skill would do more to prevent price concern, and then eating ice cream would prevent typhoid. Advantage and objections. Perhaps the most fascinating of the links which Linda Marx found was the strong relationship between advantage and objections. You will remember that advantage are statements which shows how product or their feature can be used or can help the customer. Statement which have many of us have been trained to call benefit. In the last chapter, we have showed how advantage have a positive effect on small cells, but a much less positive effect when cells grows larger. Linda's discovery offer a partial explanation. Advantage create objections, and that's one reason why they are poorly linked to the success in the large cell. To help understand the link between advantage and objections, consider this exact form an actual sales call. I have edited out reference to the company and I have cut the length of some statements. Apart from that, this exact sequence of behavior happened in the call we recorded in Dallas in September 1981. The product being sold is a word processor. Let's understand a buyer and seller problems and question. Conversation between a seller and buyer. So now seller problem question पूछ रहा है buyer से. Seller is trying to ask problem question with the buyer. Seller problem question. Does all this retyping waste time? Does all this retyping waste time? Buyer implied need. Yes, some, but there is not so much of it here, not like in fourth word. Seller advantage. Here is where our word processor would be a very big help because they'd eliminate that retyping for you. Buyer objection. Look, we retype stuff certainly, but you won't get me paying for fancy 1500,000 machines just to cut down the some retyping. Seller advantage. I understand you, but the labor cost of retyping can climb out of sight. A big plus of word processor is that they save money by making your people more efficient. Buyer objection. We are very efficient right now and I wanted to do better on efficiency. I can think of 16 ways without new word processor. I have two XXX word processor there in the back office. Nobody really knows how to use them. They give trouble, just trouble. Seller problem question. These XX machines are hard for your people to use? Buyer implied need. Yes, it's quick to type it out by hand, doing it the old way. Seller, we really can help you there. Our heavy machine use a screen so people can see exactly what they are doing. That's a lot better than your old XXX where you have got to remember things like format code which we prompt automatically that our machine can be used much more effectively. Buyer, do you know something? Some of the ladies working here get upright about a typewriter with correcting ribbon screen. It would just totally confuse them. I would end up the more mistake than I am getting now. Seller problem. Problem question. Where's the getting too many mistakes? Buyer implied it. Some will know more than most office, but more than I like. Seller test show that with the full screen editing and error correction we offer you, error rate would drop by more than 20% if you used our machine. Buyer objection. Yes, but it's not worth all that just to get rid of a few typos. What's happened here? The first thing you will notice is that every advantage is followed by an objection. Of course, I have chosen this extract to illustrate my point. Objection don't always follow advantage the way that they do in the example. I have picked here sometime the seller will use an advantage which bring a favorable response from the customer, but from our research objection are more likely response than any other buyer behavior. The next thing to notice about this example is characteristic sequence of behaviors. Problem question, implied need, objection. We found the sequence happening over and over again in unsuccessful calls. Let's look more closely at what's going on. As you can see, the fundamental of problem which is causing the objection is that the seller offered a solution before building up the need. The buyer doesn't feel that the problem has enough value to merit such an expensive solution. Consequently, when the seller gives the advantage, the buyer raises an objection. This explains why advantage have more positive effect in smaller cells. In the word processor had cost 15 instead of 15,000. The wire would probably have reacted differently. It's certainly worth $15 to eliminate retyping, but 15,000, that's a different manner. So now creating objections. Seller asked problem question. Does retyping waste time? Buyer replied with implied need. Yeah, some. Seller give advantage. Word processor eliminate retyping. Buyer considers value equation. 15,000 not worth it. Buyer raises objection. I pay 15,000. Back to the symptom and causes. How would you help the seller, for example, in tempting to suggest that because she is receiving so many objections, what she needs is better objection handling skills. So for example, we could teach her principles of objection handling and classic technique of acknowledging, rehearsing and answering, or we could give her specific help with common objection customer raised by showing her what to see when customer raise typical objection like your processors are too expensive. Word processors are hard to use. My people would be resistant to the word processor. Word processors are more trouble than they work. Wow. Siya Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. Siya Ram, Jai Jai Siya Ram. Siya Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. So let's finish this topic and then we will move to our next activity, which is speaking practice. Either of these options would help her handle future objections better. But are we treating the symptoms or the cause? In each cases, in the example of the objection arose because the seller hadn't built sufficient value before offering solutions. Teaching her how to handle objections treat the symptom, but it doesn't alter the cause of fundamental selling disease. Jumping in too soon with solution remains malignant and untreated. The cure. If the objection handling just treat the symptoms, how would we set about the complete cure? That where the spin models come in. People who are watching to me, I would like to explain spin. Spin stands for the situation question, problem question. Situation question lead to problem question, leads to implied needs, leads to sales. So spin model comes in by teaching her to probe in the way which will value we cannot prevent the objection from arising in the first place. Let me show you what I mean using this final objection in the example. First, let's examine why the customer raised the objection in the first place. Seller, problem question, you are getting too many mistakes. You are getting too many mistakes. Buyer, implied needs, some. Well, no more than most offices, but more than I like. Seller, advantage. Tests show that with the full screen editing and error correction we offer you, error rate would drop by more than 20% if you used our machine. Buyer's objection, yes, but it's not worth all that hassle just to get rid of a few typos. The customer has raised the objection because he doesn't perceive sufficient value from reducing error rate. If you could draw a value equation diagram to show what was going on the customer's mind, it would probably look like this. Hassle greatly outweighs the value of eliminating a few mistakes, so the customer makes a negative judgment and raises an objection. Even the best objection handling skills can't alter the fact that the seller has offered a solution without first building value. Let's look at how more skilled person would handle the same situation. Seller, problem question. You are getting too many mistakes. Buyer, implied need. Some will know more than most offices, but more than I would like. Seller, again, implication question. So you would say more than you would like. Does that mean that some of these mistakes are causing you difficulties in document you send out to the client? Buyer, sometime that's happened but not often because I proofread all important documents carefully before I send them. Seller, implication question. Doesn't take that up a lot your times? Buyer, too much, but it's better than letting a document out with mistake, particularly if it take a mistake in figure that go out to a client. Seller, implication question. Why would that be? Are you saying that the mistake in figure would lead to more serious consequences with client that mistake in the text? Mistake in the text? Buyer, oh yes, we could lose a bid of we could lose a bid or commit ourselves to an economic contract or even just to come across to client as sloppy. People judge you on things like that. That's why it's worth as couple of hours day proofing reading, then there is a other thing should be doing. Seller, need payoff question. Suppose you didn't have to spend that time proofing reading, what could you do with the time you saved? Buyer, well, I could give some time to training my office people, need payoff questions, and that training would lead to the improved productivity. Buyer, oh, very much. At the moment you see people don't know how to use some of equipment here, that graph plotter for example, so they have to wait until I am free to do it. Seller, implication question. So the time you are spending in the proofing also force you to become a bottleneck for other people's work. Buyer, yes, I am badly overloaded. Seller, need payoff question. Then anything which reduce the time you are spending in proofing wouldn't just help you, it would also help the productivity of others. Buyer, right. Seller, need payoff question. I can see how by reducing proofreading you could ease the present bottleneck. Is there any other way that having fewer mistakes in document would help you? Buyer, sure. People here hate retyping. It might be plus in terms of their motivation. If fewer mistakes meant less time spent in retyping. Seller, need payoff question. And presumably less time in retyping would also be cost saving. Buyer, you are right, and that's something I need to do. Seller, summarize. So it seems that the present level of mistake is leading to the expensive retyping, which creates a motivation problem with your people. If mistakes, particularly in figure, gets out to your client, it can be very damaging. You are the trying to prevent at the moment by spending 2 hours day proofing all key documents, but that's turning you into bottleneck, reducing everyone's productivity and preventing you from putting the where you put it that way. Those mistakes in document are really hurting us. We can't stop, just ignore the problem. I have got to do something about you. Seller, benefit. Then let me show you how our word processor would help you to cut mistake and reduce proofing. If we were to re-examine the customer's value equation, what would we find? Now the cost and hassle are most then counterbalanced by the which the seller has created through the use of implication and need payoff question. It's much more effective piece of selling because we have attracted the cause of objections. As the result, the objections doesn't even arise. Objection prevention is a superior strategy to objection handling. Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai. के हिसाब से दे रहे हैं। हेलो एवरीवन, I can be very good advisor of yours. So let's do leaf flutter. E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q. E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q. Actually, guys, this is a mouth warm up and mouth exercise I am doing. First, developing my speaking skills. So earlier, which you have seen, that was a lip flutter. This is. But this is lip flutter activity, which relaxes your lips to speak. And E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q E Q R Q. And this is exercise for vocal and tongue movement. So now let's do shadowing. You understand shadowing? What shadowing is? जिस भी स्पीकर, जिस भी लैंग्वेज को सीखना है, उसके स्पीकर के साथ में उसको रिपीट करना है। जैसे बचपन में हम बच्चों को पढ़ाया करते थे, पढ़ो, ऐसा है, वैसा है, ये है, वो है, क्या है, क्यों है, कैसा है। So this is what shadowing is. So let's do shadowing. I am going to do my another ritual of morning, which is shadowing part. दिल ने ये कहा है दिल से, मोहब्बत हो गई है तुमसे। तुम जो कह दो तो चांद तारों को तोड़ लाऊंगा मैं, इन हवाओं को, इन घटाओं को मोड़ लाऊंगा मैं। कैसा मंजर है मेरी आंखों में, मेरा एहसान है। So do you want to see the shadowing? Yeah, 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 yeah. मंजरिया है मेरा एहसान। मेरी धड़कनों को समझो, तुम भी मुझसे प्यार कर लो। I'm getting late for a meeting. Meeting. I'm getting late for a meeting, and I need to run. I need to run, and I need to run. He said as he slung his coat over his shoulder. He said as he slung his coat over his shoulder. Shoulder. And hurried out of the house. I'm getting late for meeting, and I need to run. He said as he slung his coat over his shoulder and hurried out of his house. I'm getting late for a meeting, and I need to run. He said as he slung his coat over his shoulder and hurried out of the house. Getting late for meeting, and I need to run. He said as he slung his coat over his shoulder and hurried out of the house. Out of the house. Out of the house. Hurried out of the house. As he drove away, she came running down the stairs, taking 2 steps at a time. Taking 2 steps at a time. Wait, she said, but he had already left. Wait, she said, but he had already left. But he had already left. But he had already left. As he drove away, she came running down the stairs, taking 2 steps at a time. Wait, she said, but he had already left. As he drove away, she came running down the stairs, taking 2 steps at a time. Wait, she said, but he had already left. As he drove away, she came running down the stairs, taking 2 steps at a time. Wait, she said, but he had already left. Her mouth crumpled like used wrapping paper. Her mouth crumpled like used wrapping papers. She, she spoke softly in a shaky voice. She, she forgot to give me a goodbye kiss. She forgot to give me a goodbye kiss. She felt hurt. She felt hurt. Her mouth crumpled like used wrapping paper. She spoke softly in shaky voice. She forgot to give me a goodbye kiss. She felt hurt. Her mouth crumpled like used wrapping paper. She spoke softly in shaky voice. She forgot to give me a goodbye kiss. She felt hurt. Her mouth crumpled like used wrapping paper. She spoke softly in shaky voice. He forgot to give me a goodbye kiss. She felt hurt. She called him on the phone and accused him of. She called him on the phone and accused him of leaving without giving her a kiss. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he said. I am sorry, sweetheart, he said. His voice contrite. His voice contrite. She called him on the phone and accused him in leaving without giving her a kiss. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he said, his voice contrite. She called him on the phone and accused him of leaving without giving her a kiss. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he said, his voice contrite. She called him on the phone and accused him of leaving without giving her a kiss. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he said, his voice contrite. It's okay, she said, trying to be mature. It's okay, she said, trying to be mature. It's okay, she said, trying to be mature. As she hung up the phone, sorry, that's all. It's okay, she said, trying to be mature as she hung up the phone. It's okay, she said, trying to be mature as she hung up the phone. It's okay, she said, trying to be mature as she hung up the phone. It's okay, she said, trying to be mature as she hung up the phone. She sadly ate her breakfast. Slowly put on her shoes, picked up her school bag and started to walk out of the door. Her shoulders slumped. She She sadly ate her breakfast, slowly put on her shoes, picked up her school bag, and started to walk out the door. Walk out the door. Her shoulders slumped. She sadly ate her breakfast, slowly put on her shoes, picked up her school bag, and started to walk out the door. Walk out the door. Her shoulders slumped. She sadly ate her breakfast, slowly put on her shoes, picked up her school bag, and started to walk out the door. Her shoulders slumped. As she stepped outside, the car stopped in front of the house. He got out of the car, approached her, and apologized for her for forgetting to give her a goodbye kiss. And apologized for forgetting to give her a goodbye kiss. And apologized for forgetting to give her goodbye kiss. As she stepped outside, the car stopped in front of the house. She got out the car, approached her, and apologized for forgetting to give her a goodbye kiss. As she stepped outside, the car stopped in front of the house. He got out of the car, approached her, and apologized for forgetting to give her a goodbye kiss. As she stepped outside, the car stopped in front of the house. He got out of the car, approached her, and apologized for forgetting to give her goodbye kiss. As apologized for forgetting to give her a goodbye kiss. He picked her up and hugged her tightly. She said nothing. Her jaw ached from smiling. Jaw ached from smiling. He picked her up and hugged her tightly. She said nothing. Her jaw ached from smiling. He picked her up and hugged her tightly. She said nothing. Her jaw ached from smiling. He picked her up and hugged her tightly. She said nothing. Her jaw ached from smiling.
Exactly.
15 years later, no one would remember that he was late for a meeting. 15 years later, no one would remember that he was late for a meeting. 15 years later, no one could remember that he was late for a meeting. 15 years later, no one would 15 years later no one would 15 years later no would remember 15. But the little girl would never forget. That her father drove all the way home. Just to kiss her goodbye. But the little girl would never forget that her father drove all the way back home just to kiss her goodbye. But the little girl, just to kiss her goodbye. But the But the little girl would never forget that her father drove all the way back home just to kiss her goodbye. But the little girl, I am getting late for a meeting and I need to run. He said as he slung his coat over his shoulder and hurried out of the house. As he drove away, she came running down the stairs, taking two steps at a time. Wait, wait, she said, but he had already left. Her mouth crumpled like used wrapping paper. She spoke softly in a shaky voice. He forgot to give me goodbye kiss. She felt hurt. She called him on the phone and accused him of leaving without her kiss. I'm sorry, sweetheart, he said, his voice contrite. It's okay, she said, trying to be mature as she hung up the phone. She sadly ate her breakfast, slowly put on her shoes, picked up her school bag and started to walk out the door. Her shoulders slumped. As she stepped outside, the car stopped in front of the house. He got out of the car, approached her and apologized for forgetting to give her a goodbye kiss. He picked her up, hugged her tightly. She said nothing, her jaw ached from smiling. 15 years later, no one would remember that he was late for meeting. But the little girl would never forget that her father drove all the way back home to just kiss her goodbye. Thank you, everyone. I am ending my life. If you want to develop yourself and if you want to grow with me, every morning you can join in this channel and we will have the same practices like reading, speaking, learning, and earning is only can be possible from learning. Thank you so much.